Hey guys, my name is Frostify and welcome back to a brand new tutorial. Today we are going to be creating a slick and minimalistic animated facecam overlay. The facecam overlay that we're going to be creating today definitely has a good use of gradients, which gives it a very clean look when you are streaming and other things like that. This facecam's functionality is extremely efficient and it is also extremely easy to make. So without further ado, let's hop right into it and create it. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you actually open up Photoshop is click New File and create a 1920 by 1080p document. Make sure your resolution is on 300 so you do not lose any quality. So the first thing you're going to want to actually do is get rid of this white background. So for starters, click the lock and completely get rid of the white layer as a whole. You can do this by creating a new layer and deleting it, or you can simply just hide it with the eyeball. So the next thing you're going to want to do is head over to your rectangle tool, and with this you're going to want to create a random rectangle size. It doesn't really matter because later on we are going to adjust the width and the height of it manually. After that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up to the top of the toolbar where it says stroke, and you're going to want to change that color to black. If you go over one column to the right, you will see that there is a pixels adjuster, and basically what this does is it adjusts the width of the actual outline of the overall facecam overlay. So I normally like to go to about 12 or 15 for my facecam overlays just because it gives it that nice thin look, but you can always go up to a higher number. Whether or not it's 20 or 18, let's just go ahead and do 20 for the sake of the video. Next, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to the right to where it says properties, and as you guys can see, we have a transform section. This basically is the exact dimensions of the rectangle shape that we created a few seconds ago. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go over to the width panel right here where it says set shape width, and you're going to want to type in 1280 and then click enter. Once you do that, you're going to want to go down to height, and then you're going to want to hit 720. The reason why you want to actually adjust it to 1280 by 720 is because it gives you that perfect amount of space to actually work around the webcam itself. You could, if you want to, do 1920 by 1080, but for the sake of the video, I definitely recommend 1280 by 720. That way you have a lot of room and other things like that. So from here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to just go ahead and center your rectangle. After that, you're going to want to head to properties again and make sure you have your rectangle one layer selected. Go ahead and scroll down until you reach a section that kind of gives you four corners, each of which should be set to 10px, which is pixels for short. However, it truly depends on how you want your facecam to look at the end of the day. As you guys can see, when you actually have the link button clicked, it will adjust all of the corners to a circular border or a square border. I personally recommend doing a hard square border because that's what looks best with this particular look, but you can personally go in any direction you want. You can go with curved edges or harsh edges. It's not really going to affect the overall design at the end. Maybe the fitting, but nothing more than that. Then from here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up to File, and you're going to click Save As. Now, when you actually do click Save As, this is you saving it as a project file. Make sure you save it as a PSD and nothing else. I also do want to say that if you guys want to download this PSD and kind of just mess around with the looks of it and stuff like that, the link will be down below in the description along with the After Effects project file. But from here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to name it whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and name mine Facecam Border. And then you're going to click Save. And just like that, the Photoshop portion of this tutorial is complete, and we are going to go ahead and head over to After Effects. Once you're in After Effects, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click New Project, and it is going to open up a brand new blank kind of workspace for you to work with. Now, my layout may look a little bit different to your guys's. Do not panic. That is simply because I just have a few plugins which will not be needed for this tutorial, so just go ahead and ignore things like Textify, Cyclops, and other things like that. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click New Composition and leave it at 1920 by 1080 while also leaving the frame rate at 60. Make sure the duration of your clip is in fact longer than 10 seconds because the animation will last about that time. Once you're done here, go ahead and list your composition name and call it Facecam Animated Overlay, or whatever you guys want to name it, really. Once you've done that, go ahead and go up to File and click Import. Basically, what this is going to do is it is going to allow us to import our project file, which is just the base rectangle for us to work with. So go ahead and go down to Import and click File. And then from here, what you're going to do is you're going to locate the project file that we saved a few seconds ago in Photoshop. In this case, mine is called Facecam Border. Double click that. And as you guys can see, you've got layer options and a description. Leave the description alone. It's completely fine. It basically just tells you what option does what. And go ahead and just click Editable Layer Styles. That way you can edit anything that was in the project file previously. Once you go ahead and click Editable Layer Styles, click OK, and as you guys can see, we have a brand new composition with our brand new project file that we imported from Photoshop. What you're going to want to do from here is double click that project file, or composition for short, and as you guys can see, the rectangle will now be here, and this is going to be the rest of the workspace that we are going to be working with for the rest of the video. So one of the first things that we actually want to do in order to accomplish this effect is add the gradient animation. So right off the bat, I recommend if your timeline is longer than 10 seconds, go ahead and click this little mountain symbol right here and size that up so you can work in smaller increments and digits. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that your work area actually matches the criteria of the animation time. So what you're going to do is you're going to find this end blue mark, which you can find by either scaling in or scaling out the actual timeline of After Effects. And then what you're going to want to do is grab it and drag it all the way to the left until you do in fact hit that end mark for your animation. In my case in particular, it's going to be 10 seconds, and I recommend that you guys do a 10-second period because it makes the file size smaller, and in Streamlabs and OBS you have the ability to loop, meaning your animation will just play over and over and over again without any hesitation. So I recommend that you put it at 10 seconds, and that is also why I said that you should probably not have a 10-second view duration because the animation will last that long when you were actually, like, you know, messing with the composition time and stuff like that. So once you have this all set up, it is time to get into the fun stuff and mess with the effects. So the first thing I want to actually introduce to you guys is the toggle transparency grid. I bet you guys are probably wondering, how did you get that checkerboard effect and other things like that? When you click this, it shows you the non-transparent view, and then when you click it again, it shows you the transparent view of the face cam. So for now, I recommend clicking that and making sure that it is on transparent. That way you can actually see what you're doing to your webcam overlay. Once you actually have the transparency thing squared away, go ahead and go down to the bottom left, which I realized that my face cam was covering, so I had to hide it. Go ahead and right-click Rectangle 1 and hover over Layer Styles. And as you guys can see, we are given a ton of options: drop shadows, inner glows, satins, anything that you could really think of in terms of a layer style in Photoshop is available right here in After Effects. So from here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go down to Gradient Overlay, which will kind of give you a black to white kind of gradient feel, which is going to be changed in the future. Trust me, don't even panic about that. And now we get into the super fun part, which is choosing our face cam colors. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click this little drop down right here where it says Gradient Overlay. And as you guys can see, we are presented with a bunch more options that look extremely confusing, but are very, very easy to navigate, I promise. So now is the chance to decide the official colors that you want your face cam overlay to be. Now for this video in particular, I am going to do a red and blue mix because I feel like those colors work well together, but you can do absolutely any color that you please. And in order to do that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go where it says colors and then click edit gradient. And very similar to Photoshop, we now have a gradient editor. So what colors I'm going to do are red and blue for the actual sake of the tutorial, and because I think those colors, like, you know, match really well together, I'm going to go ahead and click this little icon. Technically it's a color stop, but all of these are color stops, so other than the top ones, which are opacity stops. But I'm going to click the first color stop and I'm going to turn it to red, and then I'm going to click the second one and I'm going to turn it to a blue that I like, which would probably look something like this. Once you guys are done with that, you can click OK and you have your official colors for your face cam. At this point in time, you can go ahead and click off the transparency grid because, you know, you actually have a color that's visible off of a black background. Next up, what we're going to do is we're actually going to make this thing move. And I bet you're probably thinking, like, how on earth are we going to do that? So in the bottom left-hand corner right here, with all of these scary options, you can see we've got blend mode, opacity, colors, gradient smoothness, all of that. You can edit that, by the way, if you want to mess around with that. It just kind of changes the gradient a little bit on the actual face cam itself. What you're going to want to do and what option you're going to want to pay attention to is angle. And what we're going to be doing with angle is we are actually going to be keyframing every single movement of the face cam itself. So if you go ahead and click the stopwatch, if you guys can see on the timeline, there's now a random dot. This is what we consider in the After Effects world as a keyframe. And basically a keyframe marks any form of movement in an animation at any certain point in time. It is very controllable and it gives you a lot of creative freedom most of the time. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put the number on the right to 0. And what this is going to do is it is going to even out the gradient on the left and right side of the face cam. How these numbers differ is the one on the right is more fine-tuned, so it gives you a little bit more specific movement, and then this is how many times that said movement is done. So we're just going to go ahead and keep it easy and mark it simple. So go ahead and mark a keyframe at the 00 mark, as well as the start of the overall face cam timeline. And then go ahead and move your little marker all the way to the 10-second mark, and just put a 1 in the first spot. So essentially what it's going to do is it's going to start at a position, end at a position, and then completely restart because the end position is the exact same as the start position. And as you can see, we now have a face cam overlay that does a little twirly gradient effect, which is the first step of creating this face cam overlay. In my personal opinion, this is one of the easiest steps in order to get the gradient moving. And remember guys, you can make it any color you want. So if you wanted to go ahead and change the colors of your face cam overlay, all you want to do is click edit gradient again, and then change it to whatever colors you want. Let's just say I want a green and blue one. There's a green and blue one right there. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to add the light sweep effect, which is going to give our face cam overlay kind of like a glare look. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to actually want to put our rectangle 1 into a pre-comp. And the reason for this is because we need to isolate the rectangle in order to put the actual light sweep on, that way it hits all the correct locations. So you could do this by hovering over the layer on the left, or you can do it on the timeline, which I personally recommend, especially since I can't move my face cam right now. But go ahead and right click and then click pre-compose. Once you do that, click leave all attributes in face cam border, and then click OK. And as you guys can see, we actually have a new pre-comp. However, there is a slight twist. It does have our layer style on, which is not what we exactly want because we need to add a light sweep, and that masks out light sweep sometimes. So to fix this, it's pretty simple. Just go ahead and click the layer styles bar. It should be highlighted once you do so. Click Control C, which is going to copy it, and then double click the rectangle pre-comp layer. Once you do that, you're probably wondering, where is our border? All you have to do from here is click rectangle cam border PSD and click Control V, which will add our gradient and the effect of it to the actual comp itself. Then from here, we can go ahead and head back to our normal face cam animated overlay, which you can do so by clicking one of these folders here, or just go up to project and double click the comp again. And then we are going to go ahead and just highlight the layer styles panel and click delete. So with that being all said and done, the next thing we're going to add is our light sweep. So go ahead and go up to effects and presets and type in the search bar light sweep. Click the generate one because I believe that is the one everyone will have on After Effects, and subtly drag it onto your pre-comp layer and just drop it. As you guys can see, we now have an official light sweep on our face cam overlay, which can be messed with and other things like that. Before you start messing with the light sweep, one of the most important things to check for is that it's actually centered with the face cam overlay, because if it's not, then the face cam light sweep is going to look a little bit off balance, which is not exactly what you want for the clean and simplistic look. So first things first, you want to click your pre-comp layer and you want to go up to the upper left, which is your effects controls. This is where you pretty much control all of the effects that you add onto layers and other things like that. And you're going to want to click this little coordinate symbol. And once you click that, you guys can see that this is not really the center. So all you want to do is click right in the center and it will automatically change it. And now our stuff is actually equally distributed, which is really nice. So the next thing we're going to actually do is animate this light sweep to go around our face cam and look pretty damn cool while doing so. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click your pre-comp layer again. Make sure you always select the layers that you actually want to edit. That way you don't accidentally edit something else and it becomes this big old thing. So in order to control the direction of our light sweep, we are going to go ahead and click direction. And with direction, as you can see, every time we change the second number, it goes around. So the first thing you're going to want to do is the exact same thing as the other gradient move, which is setting the second number to 0. And what this will do is center the light sweep perfectly with our face cam border. Once you do that, click the stopwatch on direction, which will mark a keyframe. And if you can't see your keyframes, just go ahead and click U on your keyboard and it will show you the keyframe. And if it looks like a little circle, make sure you also click U as well, because it's very important that you look at the diamond shape of the keyframe rather than the circle, because the diamond one is more editable. And then from here, you want to go all the way to the end of the 10-second mark, which is where your animation will supposedly end but loop in Streamlabs. Then you're going to want to change the first number of the direction to 1. And once you do that, at first you're probably going to be like, nothing changed, but I promise you it now animates fully around. As you guys can see, it goes around pretty well, hits good spots, pretty slow for the most part for right now, but obviously you can adjust it to your own personal speed. And then as soon as it hits the end, it loops all the way back to the start. So now this next part is all about personal customization on the actual light sweep itself. There is a ton of stuff you can do with this. You can adjust the width, you can adjust the intensity. This is all personal preference. So what I normally do is I set the width to about 75, which will give a nice stretched look. I put the sweep intensity up more to about maybe 65, and the edge intensity to about 85. Now at first you may be like, damn, this is really harsh to look at, but I promise you, it will actually get way, way, way easier to look at when we change the color. Next thing I do is I head down to light color and I actually lower the lightness of it through grayscaling. So for example, if you put it to black, it's not going to be visible, but the lighter you go, the more visible it'll subtly get. I personally use like a gray around this area, which the hex code is B5, 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 and then I click OK. And as you guys can see, it is not as bright and obnoxious now. So the next thing that we're going to do is make sure that the face cam pops and make sure it does its job in attracting the viewer's eye to the actual face itself through the graphic. Now there is actually tons and tons of ways you can actually incorporate this look, whether or not it's through After Effects plugins or you know, built-in effects in After Effects, but we personally are going to use the default effects. But if you guys do want an alternative option, there is a plugin out there called Deep Glow, and it just makes everything look super dope. So what we are going to want to do for the actual glow effect is we're going to need to dive deep into our pre-comps and size this rectangle down so it has less of a kind of like border and boundary. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click our rectangle 1 layer, and we are going to click the layer here. It should be honestly labeled something completely random and weird. Go ahead and click S on your keyboard, which will bring up scale, and scale this down to about 60. Then from there, what you're going to notice is when we actually click back to our face cam border composition, it is going to look smaller, which is completely normal. Once this is completed, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up to effects and presets, and you're going to want to type in glow. I have a lot of plugins installed and stuff like that, but the one that you're really going to want to look for is under stylize, and that is the default After Effects glow. So what you're going to do is you're going to look for the stylized glow, and you are going to grab it and drag it onto our pre-comp. And it kind of gives you a fuzzy glow look, but I promise that it's going to look way better once we mess with some settings. So the first setting that you're going to want to mess with in the upper left is the glow radius. I recommend changing this to maybe about 80 or 75. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to mess with the glow intensity, which I actually recommend bringing down to get rid of these harsh little curves and kind of like walls between the colors. So set that to about 0.7. Where it says composite original, go ahead and click to on top. So it is on top of the face cam. When you click glow operations, make sure you click screen so it looks really good against a transparent background, which I'll show you guys soon. Go ahead and where it says color A, click the eyedropper tool and click the red. And where it says color B, click the eyedropper tool and click the blue. And what this will do is it'll color pick the two colors that are the most prominent in the face cam, and it will actually make them more prominent and bright. And as you guys can see, you have successfully incorporated a glow effect onto your webcam. Now from here on, this is what I like to call the tweaking phase, which is basically where you go back and you tweak all sorts of settings to make your webcam look good. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my light sweep and I'm going to click the sweep intensity and make that a little bit more lower, probably around 40 compared to 65. And from there on, we have officially completed the face cam. Now the rendering steps are actually very, very specific, so make sure you pay attention to this part very carefully. The first thing you're going to want to do is you are going to want to size up your pre-comp. And this is why I said earlier to not worry about the resizing. All you're going to want to do is grab this middle point on the right, hold it, hold shift, and go all the way up. Make sure that the glow does not hit any of the outer like edges of the composition though, because then you'll experience cutting off on your stream and it'll look really awkward. And just to test it out and make sure that we actually have everything in order, go ahead and click this toggle transparency grid. And if the transparency is correct, you guys can see that there is no middle ground with the actual face cam, meaning there's no, black in the middle, around, or anything like that. And when you play it, it does its thing, it does its animation, it is officially done. So from here, this is why I recommended you guys actually set your thing to 10 seconds and made sure it was enclosed, because basically what the work area end and work area start actually does is it represents the areas that it's going to render. So for example, it's going to render 0 to 10 seconds of this animation, and as soon as it ends, it's not going to render anything else past it, which is why I recommended you guys did 10 seconds. That way it was easier to loop and other things like that. So once you are officially good to go on this screen and you have your pre-comp and this random layer that you can actually discard, you can go ahead and go up to composition, add to render queue. I know this part may look a little bit confusing, but I promise you it is super easy. What you're going to want to do first is you're going to want to go to output module, and where it says lossless, just go ahead and click. Now OBS and Streamlabs do take AVIs for file format, but we're actually going to render in QuickTime, which is another file format that it takes that is overall just smoother and way easier to work with in the actual program. From there on out, we're going to go to channels, and we are going to click the drop down and change this option to RGB plus alpha. And basically what this option does is it renders the colors all prominent and perfect, as well as the transparency of the face cam. So If you actually have the RGB, it's going to not render the alpha channel in the back, which is the transparency that we need in order to put our face on the face cam. And then from there, go to output 2, and this is basically your file name and where you're going to save it. So I recommend naming it animated face cam border or official face cam, whatever you guys want to name it for your actual file. This is going to be the finalized version that we are going to put into Streamlabs and OBS. So once you have that all said and done, go ahead and click save and click render. And just like that, guys, you have officially created your very own custom animated face cam overlay for your streams. This is one of my favorite animation styles because it is super unique, and it's also not overwhelming to the viewer's eyes when they're actually watching you on stream or watching you play a game or other things like that. I also absolutely love the customization that comes with this face cam. You know, you can do different colors, you can mess around with the different light sweep effects, and just pretty much anything that you're really in the mood for the face cam itself. If you did manage to stick to the end of the video, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this tutorial helps some of you guys out who are interested in learning more about motion design and graphic design. I wanted to incorporate both programs as much as possible with this tutorial. I know that you probably could have done that beginning rectangle trick in After Effects, but I just kind of wanted to incorporate both. But as always, guys, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out on social media or leave your questions below down in the comments. I always respond to as many people as possible, and I would love to help you out if you have any concerns or questions. I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. This has been Frostify, and I will see you guys in the next video, which is coming next Saturday. Peace.